Muscle is a boomer deck. It's been around for ages. However, for some reason, Overkill decided to buff it out of the blue a couple months ago. Muscle is already a solid deck, but this buff sent it even higher. On top of it just being good, the deck has a lot of unique advantages, and I'll be using them in this video. The biggest thing Muscle provides is more health. It provides so much extra health that it's the only deck in the game that can take 3 health shots without needing resist or converts. This is already strong, but the deck has a built-in hostage taker function that heals you for 3% of your health every 5 seconds. Now this doesn't sound like much, but remember just how much health you have. Out of the box, that's 14 health every 5 seconds just for existing. Every deck that doesn't have any health boost can only reach this with a convert and hostage taker aced, a cost of at least 28 points. Another feature of Muscle is the panic that it provides. As long as your weapon is unsilenced, shooting near enemies will have a chance to panic them. Scripted enemies have a 20% chance, common enemies have a 14% chance, and some enemies have no chance. Think gangsters, heavy SWATs, and dozers for each category respectively. This panic can last anywhere from 2.6 seconds to 4.3 seconds. While panicking, enemies just kinda do that. During this panic, they're basically harmless, and as with anything harmless, make sure to kill them before they rise back up. The last feature of Muscle is that you get targeted more when around teammates. It makes sense, you are quite tanky after all. However, in practice, this really just means that your armor regen will be suppressed more often, so get used to armor coming back later than usual. Having not played Muscle for a while, this threw me off when recording these builds early on. The deck itself is quite simple, but there's a surprising amount that you can do with it. Well, let's see what it is that you can do. When someone pictures Muscle, this is probably what they see. A big armored guy with bullets for the team. Well, tank-wise, this is the best build you'll see in this video. In fact, it's quite an absurd build when you think about it. Underdog Ace allows your armor to take 2 shots, and Muscle, playing as Client, means you almost always have Underdog active. This means that you can sink 4 shots without any worry. Add to that the crazy power of Muscle Hostage Taker, which with at least 1 convert, will heal you for an almost comical 40 health per 5 seconds. It doesn't really sound like much, but that means that heavy SWAT damage will be healed in just 30 seconds. And since you have armor and the rest of your health to cover you, downing with this build is quite difficult. Well, as long as you don't factor in the weapons. Yeah, they're suboptimal. I picked the Eagle Heavy just because it has heavy in the name, and Muscle with armor, whatever, it was stupid. You could, and probably should, swap this out for any other 100 damage battle rifle if you were to play this build seriously. The only redeeming quality of the Eagle Heavy is that it hits 100 stats without skills, but just use skills and a better weapon. The Vertex isn't good either, and this was recorded before the SMG buff recently. Kinda funny how it made the Vertex obsolete, even though it already wasn't very good. I just wanted to use something unique, what can I say? Realistically, swap these weapons out for something better. slightly less tanky than the last build, this one does not have hostage taker. Then again, muscle doesn't really need it. With a convert, you'll be healing 16 health per 5 seconds, which is a heavy shot every 65 seconds if you consider quick fix. Speaking of, there's no underdog to give 2-shot armor here, but you do have first aid kits. As long as you use them every now and then, your armor will always be safe. The buzzsaw is a powerful LMG, but I only picked it for its rate of fire, as more bullets means more chance to panic. This has saved me quite a few times, but you could switch it out for the KSB and only see a minimal difference. When it comes to the 5.7, it's only here for shields, but if you wonder why I chose it over something like a grenade launcher, as is the usual setup for an LMG, it's because for panic to activate, you need to shoot near an enemy, and if you shoot near an enemy with a grenade launcher, well, the panic doesn't really matter at that point. Overall, I'd put this as the most generalist build in the video. One idea that you could go for, if you want a bit more tank, is getting Hostage Taker Basic, as it wouldn't take a lot of point movement. Usually basic Hostage Taker is pretty useless, but on Muscle it actually has a purpose. You would heal 24 health every 5 seconds, which cuts a heavy shot heal from 65 to 45 seconds. Muscle increases your health dramatically, so what else to do than cut it back down to size, right? Having a convert and the quick fix buff active means that you actually have just barely enough health to survive a heavy shot, but if you aren't at full health and have these active, well, not so fun. One thing to note is that if and when you do get hit, the heal from Muscle scales off base health rather than frenzy health. This means that you heal 16 health, and since you reduce heavy SWAT damage to 151.9, you can heal a heavy shot in 50 seconds. That means you can technically tank more shots with this setup than the last one. Of course, assuming that you never tank more than one health shot at a time. The Bernetti range hitter is a cool sniper that has a unique breakpoint, which allows it to one-shot heavies with just frenzy level Zerk. That fact makes it the perfect weapon for a build like this, since you'll constantly be healing back up. One option that I want to offer is switching to a silencer on this range hitter. The sniper itself doesn't have a massive fire rate to make use of the panic, which means it won't really be activating all too often. The sniper will occasionally panic enemies, making them sitting targets, but a silencer means that you will call less attention to yourself at the cost of some free kills. Spring is basically here, so it's time to ditch the armor and go for something lighter. This in itself wouldn't be such of a jump if it wasn't for the controller tree. Yes, this build does not have a convert, which on the surface may seem stupid, but actually, well, yeah, it's pretty stupid. Don't do this. Not once did I use Stockholm Syndrome while recording this build, although a majority of my builds should probably come with a warning sticker on them. Anyway, you can still take 2 health shots, which is powerful, and you still have Hostage Taker. This is great! as long as you have a hostage. One thing that doesn't come up with other builds is having a hostage for hostage taker. All the other builds run a convert, which always makes hostage taker work. This build, however, requires either a civ or dominated cop for you to heal a large amount. Otherwise, it'll just be the default deck heal. So although you can't take a convert, you still need to keep one around. Like I said, don't do this. The build itself is quite strong, as the points from armor and deployables went into buffing the weapons. The AK Gen SMG packs a punch and was in its own class for quite some time. Only recently did some SMGs come near it, but hey, I record this gameplay in March. Overkill aced, body expertise, and crits with this gun make it wipe enemies quite fast, so what you lack in defense you make up for in offense. However, you can still run out, so personally I'd recommend running an ammo bag unless the map calls for something else. This last build I have is the weirdest, as per usual. I mean, I literally called it Funky Minigun in the footage files. This build is a weird compilation of all the previous builds. It has light armor, no hostage taker, and makes use of a higher rate fire weapon. This build is surprisingly fragile though, as even with Overkill aced, body expertise, and crits, the Vulcan doesn't perform nearly the same as the AK Gen, or any other weapon in this video, with exception of the first build. The survivability is also not even close to the other builds. It heals slowly and doesn't tank as much. That said, the build itself will work fine as long as you play cautiously. However, this build has absolutely no way to recover after a down. Make sure to be extra careful after being helped up with this build, especially if you've been playing the other builds. Also, the microgun is a better minigun if you wanted to run it, but it doesn't have as fast a fire rate. Is there a practical difference between 2,000 and 3,000 rounds per minute? No, but I'm really trying to give purpose to power-corrupt weapons here, so let me have this tiny advantage. Similarly to the last build, I highly recommend running an ammo bag unless the map calls for something different. The ammo capacity on the minigun is kind of sad, especially when you compare it to the microgun, which, like I said, is just better. Five muscle builds focusing on different elements of the deck. All in all, quite a fun deck, and after the buff, a very strong one. Give it a go, even if it's not these builds. There's quite a lot that you can change in them to be significantly more useful, so I wouldn't blame anyone for not wanting to use the setups I showed in this video verbatim. As always, I'll be leaving a poll for the next perk deck soon, so be sure to vote on whatever you want to see next. Also, remember to campaign for your deck in the comments or something. I don't know how effective that's going to be for gathering votes, but give it a go. It boosts interaction stats with the channel.